Welcome to episode 13 of the At Bat Baseball podcast presented by WARR Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news, as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez. Miles is out for the week. He is on vacation in Cancun. I'm not jealous at all. But we're joined instead by a pair of WARR Media members. Got Chris Pennant. He's been on the show before. And we got Gavriel Wilkins. Welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it, man. It's a pleasure to be here, Saul.
All right.
Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too. All right. So we were talking a little bit before we started, just to get a little bit of an intro here. Like Gavriel, as I said, first time on the show. You're a White Sox fan. You can tell us a little bit about that, man. Tell us a little bit about how you became a fan and, why you love the White Sox so much.
Well, I mean, it all started for me when I was little, man. My mother was the vice assistant to Eddie Einhorn from 1992 to, I want to say, 2002. She worked at the ballpark for 10 years. Had a big time role there. I got a chance to meet a lot of the players, from Frank Thomas, Maglio Ordonez, guys I grew up, Ray Durham, Chris Singleton, so many others. Like I had a front row seat, Carlos Lee. I was at games almost like practically every week of my childhood. So I pretty much grew up in that ballpark and, just following the team. To me, they were always like the more competitive team, even when they didn't win division, championships. They always put a solid product out there. And I was always a big fan of the American League because they had designated hitters. The National League, you had pitchers batting into, recently. So that was really how I became a fan. And the 2000 team really kind of caught my eye, because that's when I was finally coming into my own, paying attention to baseball when they won the Central. So I really been a fan for all my life. It's never really been a question. Granted, the Sammy Sosa era, had a big impact on a lot of us youth in Chicago, and a lot of my friends became Cubs fans because of it. But I was always a big fan of the Sox. To me, they always had the cool colors. They always had the harder uniforms. And I mean, I've been rocking with them ever since.
No, yeah, that you made a good point, man. With the uniforms, like I'm not even gonna lie, like even as a Cubs fan, like I don't mind the Cubs uniforms. Like the home Cubs uniform is my favorite personally, but the White Sox, like the black and white, like it's just always been like pretty badass, like just colorway and like for me, like I do like the throwbacks, like the ones that say Sox with like the batter.
83
And like
was
like I wouldn't mind like Sox going back to that, but at the end of the day, I don't think you guys can go back to that just because the logo you guys have now is like so like I mean like I've seen so many celebrities with that hat, so it's like I mean it's pretty iconic now. So and also not to mention the South Side jerseys, I think are in my opinion still number one like of the rankings of the Connect jerseys. Is for me number one is still the White Sox one. The Rockies one, I don't know what you guys thought about the Rockies one, but I thought that one for me now is like top three. But yeah, no, those are pretty sick in general. But Chris, how you doing, man? Happy to have you on a second time on the show.
Appreciate it, man. Like I said, cool to come back. I don't have nearly as good a story as Gabe, but I was in the Guaranteed Rate Company box over the weekend, and I was telling my friends and some other people who were there. We would save the ticket stubs. So my mom has a ticket from '92 against the Twins, and I'm fairly sure that's my first game, or maybe second game going to a Sox game. And the first time I really remember is when she was working for Ameritech. So it's back then. And she got tickets in the skybox then. And I was all excited, like, oh, I'm going to see baseball and White Sox. And so that really stuck with me. And the next time we went, we were going into the 100 level because she refuses to sit in the upper deck still, even though they've kind of lowered the degree of the of the seats. And I was like, why are we going to our box? Why are we going to our seats? She's like, those aren't our seats. We just, that was like a one-time thing. And I was like, but we gotta go, that's where we sit. And so I was a little spoiled early on, but yeah, it's always, I love going to that ballpark, man. And being back in the box is always the same feeling going in. If you get the chance to go to a box, you get to go up on the elevator, they're pushing the button for you. They're like, oh, here's you get the carpeted hallways and everything. I was talking to people in there. You feel like you come in there, you kind of feel like, hey,
yeah.
like White Sox royalty in there.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it. They're asking you like, hey, would you like the dessert cart to come later? You're like, huh? The dessert cart?
Yep.
You're like, all I can have? All right, I'll take
Right.
it.
Right.
I have yet to do a box in either Wrigley or White Sox. So I'm like, I definitely want to, like, whenever I do that, it's gonna be awesome. Cause like, yeah, the food is the number one thing. I'm just like, man, they show like they'll cut to like at Wrigley, they'll cut to the the people like eating like their Italian beefs and their hot dogs, and I'm just like, man, that looks awesome. But yeah, so we'll start things off with the Cubs. Actually, I know you guys. We made a point that you guys are both White Sox fans. I'm a Cubs fan, but we'll get the Cubs out of the way. We know, nice and simple, nice and easy, nice and clean. We know they're 28-46, not looking too good. They lost another series to the Pirates, which I mean I'm getting used to at this point. They're in total, like, for the year they're 5-8 against the Pirates. I don't understand like what's going on there, but they did end up winning a series against the Cardinals, which was nice. Like, I've been telling like some of my friends, I'm like, you know what, if the Cubs are gonna suck this year, like, as long as they play competitive games against the Cardinals and Brewers, the top, the cream of the crop of the Central. So that's why I'm not not that down about the week in general. But overall for you guys, what are your thoughts on not necessarily the Cubs situation? I mean, the Cubs situation, it is what it is. They're in rebuild mode. But over the last week, like, for example, that Cardinal series, what are some of the bright spots that you guys saw from your perspective as Sox fan?
Just from my perspective, really, Keegan Thompson's his season has been really solid. I know they're looking at him as the building block on the pitching staff, and he's been that guy. I remember the game last year at Comiskey Park where I think he pitched on Saturday night and shut the Sox out 6-0, and he looked really good in that game. I'm fairly sure that's correct. I don't think it was Alec Mills. I'm pretty sure Keegan Thompson had the game where the Sox got shut out after that wild game on Friday night that ended up like 17-13, I think it was. And he has the highest ERA plus on the pitching staff, which is a good sign for them. I'm a little surprised to see Christopher Morel's batting average around 250, because I feel like every time that I happen to tune into a Cubs game, he was on base. And I've seen my man Gene from the Big Sports really talking about his on-base streak. And he's just a bright spot in a season that's otherwise pretty lousy for them. So I didn't get to catch most of the Cardinals series per se, but I know those two guys, just over the long haul in the season, those are two guys that Cubs fans can hang their hats on.
Yeah, Keegan Thompson, I know he was a guy that they had the bullpen for a little while, and they were trying to figure out what his role was going to be, either as a bullpen arm, as a starter. But I think he's really impressed a great deal as a starter, and I think he's found a role there where he might be able to cement himself as the face of the future for the Cubs franchise if he continues to, work outings the way that he has. He did have an impressive outing against the White Sox on the South Side, as Chris alluded to, against Johnny Cueto. I think he had 6+ innings, a shutout of baseball. And, you got to tip your cap to young guys like that trying to find their role in this league as pitchers, which is oftentimes hard to do. I like Chris Morel as well. I think he's a nice piece. Anytime you could take a division series against a rival, which, as we know, the Cubs and Cardinals, two passionate fan bases, both, got a love-hate relationship with one another, you take that, be it in a down year or even in a year where you're on the up and up. But I'm more interested to see what the Cubs' future holds with some of the guys that were on the 2016. You've been hearing a lot of rumors and reports about Kyle Hendricks being in trade room. We know Wilson Contreras, is looking for a new contract after the season concludes. So that's going to be an interesting scenario. And even though no team in the history of baseball has ever won a World Series acquiring a catcher at the trade deadline, it's some teams that can use the services. And if you could get some assets for them and you trying to build your farm system up like the Ricketts have sought to do and they haven't hit, You know, they got rid of Brian last year, got rid of Rizzo, got rid of Baez. You can't help but wonder who's next, you know, because there's only so many of those guys still left from the 2016 roster on this team.
Yeah, no, and to backtrack a little bit on the because I'll actually ask you a little bit about the I'll ask you guys about the trade deadline, who you else think is going to leave. But yeah, with Keegan Thompson, that's another like he's been pretty impressive, and the thing is too is like I think if he would have actually had a really great, because he had a start yesterday against the Reds, he gave up 4 runs. And I think if he would have actually, had maybe like another, 6 shutout or even 6 giving up 1 earned run, I would have maybe pushed a little bit more of the Keegan Thompson for NL All-Star campaign, but I think it kind of fell out. Like he was kind of on the bubble. Now I think after that start, he's probably not going to be in the running. But yeah, he's one of those guys that coming out of the pen, I think his numbers look better from out of the pen than as a starter. But yeah, for the Cubs, he is one of their top starters in general. And he's I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that I do like to watch him start, and it's like gives it gives me some optimism. Him and guys like Justin Steele, like that type of stuff, like Caleb Killian too, like those guys obviously still need some more development, but seeing that is obviously definitely a plus. And Kyle Hendricks, I mean, he's been, just like really bad over the last like year and a half, and he had a great start on Friday night against the Cardinals. So that was cool to see. I mean, and he has a I think like a 14-3 record or something against the Cardinals, so he owns them in general. But it is something, a sight for sore eyes is probably an understatement there. Also another guy that has been nice to see kind of the way he's played overall in the season when he has played, because he's been injured for a little bit, is Nico Horner. I was looking at his Savant page too. Like I was like, man, he's looking good in general. As much as the results, I know the OPS isn't there quite yet, but he has an expected batting average in the 96th percentile. And not only that, but his speed, he's in the 92nd percentile for his speed, and he has 8 defensive runs saved, which is 3rd in the majors amongst shortstops. So he's got his bat's improving, and he's one of the most elite shortstops in the game now defensively. So when you're trying to build a team, I think that's one of the important parts is to get a shortstop. So hopefully his bat can come around a little more than his defense has. Obviously Ian Happ is a guy too that has been fun to watch this year. And he's also another guy too that when he does play, he does make an impact almost every game, like when he's healthy. But he's had some trouble over the years of either staying healthy or just staying on the field in general. Like I know he had one year where they sent him down to the minors and stuff like that to start the season, but he's another guy that might go as well. I think it's probably the right time for him just because his stock has never been this high. But yeah, you know what? Wilson's probably the one that I can almost guarantee he's gonna be gone. And I've heard murmurs about like maybe the Astros, maybe even the Mets. But you know what? I wanted to get you guys' opinion on who else you guys and I know Gavriel, you talked a little bit about Kyle Hendricks and stuff like that, but who do you guys think is under the radar? Like, is it an Ian Happ or is it more of like a bullpen guy like Scott Frost or maybe even David Robertson? Because David Robertson is also a guy that's in the running to be an NL All-Star because he's got a great ERA and he's a guy that for sure teams would want because he got experience in the postseason. So I want to get you guys' opinion on that.
Robertson's definitely a name that I can see being in the mix for some teams, as you alluded to, Saul. He has postseason experience. He's won a ring with the Yankees, been in big time, high leverage situations, be it as a setup man and as a closer. So I wouldn't be surprised, if a team that was looking for some bullpen help would be interested in inquiring for his services for sure. I think Wilson Contreras, you brought up the Astros and the Mets. I think a team like the Tampa Bay Rays might be interested in his services as well. Granted, they have solid catching from a defensive standpoint, but they're not getting any offensive production from too many of their catchers. Say the same for Houston as well, but Tampa Bay is a team that in a tough American League East, they're going to need all the competitive advantages they can get. And if you could get him even for a half a season and not have to give up much from your farm system, a couple pieces, by the wayside, you that might be a move you're willing to do if you're still in the thick of things in a wild card race, which they are. So I can see a few teams making some moves and seeking to inquire with the Cubs about a few of their guys as they seek to contend and elevate going into the dog days of the summer.
I agree with that. Tampa Bay has Mike Zunino now, who's a solid defensive catcher and really one of the premier sabermetrics guys of the 21st century. And I say that as he is a three true outcomes type of player. But Wilson Contreras can give you more than that. And he's, I think, a better defender than Zunino is. So Tampa Bay would really like to have a guy like that. Really, they need what they can get from their team and their to get more out of their fan base now, because they're in a bit of turmoil just with location, whether they're going to stick around Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, what have you. So picking up a guy like Wilson Contreras would really, I think, boost their playoff run. David Robertson, having seen the David Robertson experience as a White Sox fan, is really interesting that he is having such a good season. I think my first instinct would be to say because there's less pressure on the way the Cubs are playing right now. He is just, the limelight's not on him, the spotlight's not on him like it was on the South Side when he was brought in to be a big name, big time closer for them and was okay. So yeah, I definitely think somebody's going to go after him at the trade deadline. I'm not exactly sure who. I know we haven't talked about the Bryce Harper injury yet, but the Phillies are always so inconsistent. I think they're also runs in the NL East again. Otherwise, I would say that he would be a guy to go back because they had him before. He wouldn't be a bad guy to go back to again since can be a dependable closer like he's showing this year. Other than that, I'm not sure if Hap would get picked up, even though I love what he does as a switch hitter. But I'm not quite sure what team would really want to go after him. Who would want a guy as a third or fourth outfielder. So it's tough to see what the Cubs have in the way of sellable assets other than the two guys that we already mentioned.
Yeah, with it's funny though with the Ian Happ, I have heard like I've seen like Yankees Twitter talk about how he would be nice, but the thing is, I think that was more when like because Gallo obviously hasn't been playing up to his standards by a long shot. Aaron Hicks also was cold for a long. He's hot now, but that's probably what's quieted down Ian Happ to the Yankees type thing that I've heard is nothing crazy, but I just think he would fit kind of there, especially playing with Rizzo too, and just like that porch, with Happ too, with the power he's got, I think would be pretty nice to see there. But yeah, I think if there's one guy that stays, because I know a lot of people like in Cubs Twitter, you see it and you hear it, and it's like they want Wilson to stay, they want to extend, they like extend Wilson, but I don't know, man. I don't, even with the DH, I know he's a great hitter, but I don't know. I just don't see him being as good as he is now, like when we're good again in like 3 years. Like I don't know. I just don't see it. And even if he is, like, what are we gonna get out of one good, like, what are we gonna get Wilson out of one good Cubs team again? Like I don't know. I just rather sell high on him. If we keep any of the guys, I hope it's Ian Happ, just because I feel like he wouldn't want that much money. So I don't know. I think I'm kind of hopeful that he would stay because I feel like he could be a very important part to, the next good Cubs team just because he's versatile and I think he's on the upward trajectory. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting trade deadline with the Cubs, especially for the second straight season. I don't know about as crazy as last season just because they really got rid of all the All-Stars last year, but this year it just looks like one. But yeah, and kind of shifting a little bit more to the NL Central talk. Me and Miles talked about it have talked about it in the past couple of weeks of just how weak honestly, not even just NL Central, but just Midwest baseball this year has been weak. Even regardless of who's in first in the AL Central with the Twins or even the Guardians are getting hot, but it has been pretty lackluster. But with the NL Central, we'll talk about the AL Central in a little bit. But with the NL Central, are you guys convinced with those teams like the Cardinals and Brewers? And if so, what team do you think is going to win that division?
It's a toss-up. It's a toss-up to me because it's like it depends on the week and the matchup. But it's obvious that it's going to come down to those two because a lot of the most other three franchises in rebuilding mode. You got the Pirates trying to figure out what they're going to do with their young pieces. You got the Cubs trying to figure out who's our future pieces of the franchise moving forward and who's not going to be a part of our future moving forward in the long term. And then, you got the Cincinnati Reds who, as we know, you got young talent like Hunter Green and whatnot leading the way, but it's a lot of moving pieces there and stuff like that. Some of those pieces they've already gotten rid of, and Eugenio Suarez, and the Jesse Winklers of the world, but it's only more to come. So to me, it's between Milwaukee and St. Louis for the Central and the National League, and whoever wins out head to head, that's gonna be the team that represents the Central Division. But like you said, Midwest baseball has been very lackluster.
Yeah, and it sucks because this is kind of what we expect outside of that year. The Sox won really the mid-2000s, where the Sox and the Tigers and the Twins were all pretty good. The Sox won the World Series, the Tigers went to the World Series, and then with the Twins always ran into the Yankees for some reason. But that was really the last time that I think that you could count on the division to be really good, other than when the Tigers went in 2010. So there's always just this element of mediocrity or just lackluster, in some way, shape, or form, lackluster baseball. And I don't know why it is in the Midwest. I don't know. Not all these teams are small market, right? Like the Pirates, yeah, the Royals, yeah, but Detroit still has the Ilitch money. The White Sox, we know what the deal is. Even Milwaukee is gone hunting and found quality players that they have managed to hold on to for the most part. And so I don't know why. And the Cubs, as much as I detest the Cubs, I'm sorry, Saul. I took a very personal rigidity to this one team fandom idea. But the Ricketts just outright lied to their fan base after that World Series run. Because they said, we're going to stay competitive. We're not just going to go in and treat this as we did it, and now we're going to try and save money. And they've spent all this bread building up New Wrigleyville and taking it out of the team. There's no excuse for that in my mindset. Never mind their political leanings, which are also detestable. But it's a real shame to see both of these ball clubs underspending when they don't have to, because if you get better teams, you'll see like what happened in 06 when the Sox won 90 games and didn't make the playoffs, and then the Tigers went to the World Series. You get teams that can compete with the East Coast and West Coast on a regular basis. That's what I thought the Cubs were heading for, and they really were that for 3 years. And that's what I thought the White Sox were supposed to be heading for now, except we have this dud of a season so far. So it really annoys me that we can't get quality competition for even like a 10-year period now that baseball has been freed from the reserve clause and all of that. It's like every owner says that they're calling poor when they're not.
No, yeah, and it's funny because I always tell people, because of, like, for example, like Moneyball with the A's and the Rays, like those are two teams that have some of the richest, if not the richest, owners in the game, and yeah, they just pinch pennies like every year, and what makes it even worse is the fact that, like, the A's won for a good amount of, like, the 2010s. So and the Rays obviously have been competitive for a decade now, but it's like that's what makes it even worse, because the owners are like, well, guess what? Like, they're winning, they're making it to the playoffs. That should be enough. Like, we'll stay there. We'll obviously, they're like, it proves we don't have to spend money is probably what they say. And yeah, it just makes it worse. But yeah, yeah, like, they keep saying, especially for the Cubs, in the Cubs part of this is that they got the money, they'll spend it either this year or next year. But yeah, it's just one of those things that you just gotta wait. We're gonna have to wait and see if they're bluffing again, because it's just it's been a roller coaster. And the thing is, I like Jed Hoyer. I don't have a problem with Jed Hoyer, but it's really just obviously the Ricketts. Obviously, is probably the only negative part of the whole front office, which is a huge part of it. Not to downplay it, but but yeah, so it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens on that end of things. Now, moving over to the south side of Chicago, we'll stay on that Midwest topic. The White Sox 35-38. I talked a little bit about the Sox last week in how they were kind of trending up despite the series loss to the Astros. I mean, just that's probably one of the best teams, if not the best team in the AL. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But they actually beat the Blue Jays in a series 2 games out of 3, and then lost the series to the Orioles 3 games out of 4. which is probably not as I personally don't think it's as shameful as other years. As much as the White Sox, should be better than they are, obviously. But the Orioles, I'll talk a little about them in a second. But first, that the Blue Jays series, I thought was good to see another series win for the White Sox there. I mean, they had that gutsy 7-6 win in 12 innings. And then also the fact that they were able to come back on Jordan Romano in that one game too. And then in the finale that they had the chance of sweeping, but Bo Bichette and Alejandro Kirk, they hit some bombs and were able to salvage that one. But yeah, that we'll go in order. So we'll talk about that Blue Jay series first. What did you guys think about that, and just about how they've played against AL East teams in general?
The Blue Jay series was a real missed opportunity because the Sox started out June, or at least got into the second or third week of June, really hitting better as a team. I pulled up some stats a week or so back. Andrew Vaughn was lighting it up. He didn't have a lot of extra base hits, but he was really smoking in June. Luis Robert had turned a corner seemingly. And the Sox at the beginning of the season, outside of that first week, they weren't able to hit anything. Then in May, they started getting hits, but they couldn't score. Then in June, they were actually scoring runs for the guys that they were putting on base. And then they just took that huge step backwards. They got to 500, and then lost 4 in a row, the last game of that series against Toronto. And then those first 3 games against Baltimore, it looked like a microcosm of May and April, where they scored, I think, 5 runs over 3 games, if that. And before they got the win on Sunday, and of what turned out to be a close game, somehow, again, it's annoying because they looked like they were starting to figure it out. They swept Detroit. They put up a bunch of runs on the Tigers. They got smoked by Houston coming into that first game, but then beat them 7-0. And then we had a lot of close wins and really, 3-4 run losses. So I can't figure this team out. And it's hard to keep faith in this season when the results keep going as they have and the season is going longer and longer. I know there's a lot of games left. They legitimately are. There's more playoff spots this year. But as my friend Val asked me, do you think this team could get to the playoffs, or do you think that they can make a run in the playoffs? And the answer to the first question is still yes. The answer to the second one right now is no. And I don't know if it'll ever be yes.
Yeah, that's well said, Chris. When I think about the month of June and the Blue Jays series, you take 2 out of 3. But when you think as the month of June comes to a close, all the missed opportunities in games. Like, it was times in the month of June where the White Sox was scoring 7+ runs in consecutive games, but they couldn't find a way to muster up wins. I think back to the game. It was on a Saturday. It was a Saturday afternoon game against Texas, and the Sox had like a 6+ run lead. And you're thinking, this is it. The offense starting to click. Things are starting to gel. Guys are getting hot. AJ Pollock's back's coming along. Josh Harrison's coming along. Like, even though Tim Anderson was out the lineup, and Mendick was playing pretty well, prior to going down with a torn ACL injury, unfortunately. You were thinking that things were on the horizon. But then bullpen mismanagement, situational hitting, needing hits at timely and key situations not coming through, it leaves you with so many questions about this team. And granted, they're only 6 games back in the Central, and with a July that will feature a lot of Central Division opponents coming into town and them going on the road to play against the likes of Cleveland. Those are games now that you have to win, and when you in series that you have to win. And some of those series you got to sweep just to even put yourself truly back in the thick of things. The margin for error is slim. I do think that the ball club has been more competitive. I think they showed a great deal of fight last night in a come from behind win against Anaheim or the LA Angels. Josh Harrison going 2 for 4, hitting a home run, big home run. Luis Robert coming through with some timely hits as well. Abreu, Moncada as well. But man, it's still a lot to be desired with this group. And if every time you find yourself watching a game, you can't help but say, man, what would it be like if the Sox played in the American League East? Because it would be a grind, that's for sure.
This is a really incredible stat. The White Sox are hitting 257 with runners in scoring position. It's real solid. It's real solid. With runners on second and third, they're hitting 344 and an OPS over 1,000. With the bases loaded this year, the White Sox in 57 at bats, the White Sox are hitting 175.
What?
175. Like it's, and everybody knows it. And you're at the ballpark and the bases are loaded, people are like chewing their fingernails off. My girlfriend, I picked up season tickets with her this year, and we were sitting watching one game just on game day, and I think they grounded out with the bags full, or Luis Roberts struck out, and she was like, at least they got the bases loaded. And I was just like, they always have the bases loaded.
Right.
That's what always happens. It's unconscionable that is happening in today's Major League Baseball, that a team is doing that badly with the bases full.
Yeah, and I think is kind of looking at the Orioles series too, as Gabriel made a good point. It's like, yeah, what if the White Sox were in the AL East? So that would be pretty rough. I mean, see, the thing is with like as much as, and I said before, like the White Sox should be able to beat a team like the Orioles with the talent you guys have on the field and all that. But one thing I did look at when I was looking at the Orioles in general is the fact that they have the second most wins amongst their AL East opponents, behind the Yankees. So they have 15 wins against AL East opponents, and that's only second to the Yankees. So they've been playing those teams, like those pretty competitive teams in the AL East, really well. Actually, still in the wild card race, just as the White Sox are. So they're a young, exciting team, but yeah, it is games the White Sox should be able to win. And it is. I can only imagine the frustration because of just the fact that not only the injury talk is probably overplayed. I get it. It's probably like it's not even an excuse anymore. But overall, I think when you see this team and what some of the positives that you'll be able to look at is like how good Kopech's been. How good, how much of a stopper Dick Dylan Cease has been. But, one guy I did want to talk about in general when we're talking about a little bit of the positives for the White Sox is Johnny Cueto. I mean, that guy has been amazing for you guys so far. And how much of an impact has he been to that rotation? And not only that, but what I'm wondering is how he fits into a healthy White Sox rotation.
Huge. Johnny Cueto's been big time. And, he's one of the few guys outside of Dylan Cease on the roster who you can count on giving you 6+ every single start. Even if he's giving up runs, he knows how to get himself out of situations. His windups and his delivery, his ability to change in a Louis Tiant type of way, it keeps hitters off of balance, and it plays a vital role. And I always was adamant about him being the 5th starter before the season started, because there were so many questions about Dallas Keuchel and so forth, and whether or not he would be able to string together a quality of consistency in a Sox uniform following his first season in 2020. He obviously did not. And now that Cueto's been in the mix, he's been perfect. I mean, his start against Houston, to go 7 strong and shut down that offense, which is one of the best in the American League, as you alluded to earlier, Saul. That was a hell of a performance, especially coming off of a game in which, the Astros put up 10+ runs in the bottom of the 7th and just put the game to bed, that Friday night. So, you need starters like a Johnny Cueto, a guy with postseason experience, as we know, won a ring in Kansas City, been there, done that, to help this team elevate and still stay within the thick of things in the center.
Yeah, Cueto's been gigantic. I didn't have a lot of, I didn't think that he was going to be that big of a deal, a guy you signed into a minor league contract pretty much, even though he has experience and even though he's always been a tough pitcher. But he's come in and he's given the Sox a spark that they really desperately needed. And I know a lot of this is from a fan's perspective, but it matters is from a fan's perspective, because like Gabe said earlier, Sox fans are a temperamental bunch at best. And they don't like to be there when the ball club is losing. They especially don't like to be there when the expectations are not being met and the ball club is losing. So bringing Johnny Cueto in, who's held things down in that rotation while Lucas Giolito's had a rough patch, and Michael Kopech is still in the part of his career where he throws too many pitches. He doesn't hit the strike zone as often as he'd like. having Johnny Cueto there might not have saved the season, but it's definitely kept fans from just jumping completely off the ledge.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true. I mean, Kopech, I think is the best is still yet to come for him. I think he's only going to get better from here. But I mean, some of the performances he's had on like Sunday Night Baseball. I know the Astros one didn't necessarily go as you know as he would like, but um, the one like for example the one he had against the Yankees and stuff like that. Like that's you know that if you have that Kopech in the playoffs, I mean, a healthy White Sox rotation we all know is good. But you know, one thing I did want to get you guys' opinion on that came out. Was the fact that how they were telling some of the guys that have been injury prone to go easy on getting out of the box. I don't think they said who, but I think it's. I mean, I'm guessing it's like guys like Yohan Moncada and stuff like that, like to not go hard to first base just because of like the injuries they've had. Of those rumors or what people have talked about, like what do you guys make of that?
I think it's fair, but I don't. That's not something that the team should have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's the news with Brian Ball, the former Sox trainer, who's alleging that he was dismissed because of his sexual orientation, because he's gay. It's not a good look to have that alongside you losing guys to what you'd refer to as soft tissue injuries. And I don't recall the Sox having this as an issue in the mid-2000s as much when they had Dale Torborg, when they had Herm Schneider, when they had Brian Ball. So no matter what in the offseason, I don't know if they will. Rick Hahn says he reads all these letters, but I don't know if they will. They need to overhaul that training staff. They really do, because you can't lose guys to injuries that are avoidable. If you have collisions like what happened to Danny Mendick, if you have things like what happened to, I mean, you could avoid the Eloy Jimenez injury last year. He just shouldn't have jumped on the fence in spring training. But things that you can't avoid, that's what's going to happen. Bryce Harper getting hit in the thumb with a pitch, things like that are going to happen. But guys running out ground balls to first base shouldn't be limping off the field. Even when Tim Anderson had that groin injury, something like that is at least somewhat preventable. And the Sox, no matter if they're underwhelming, part of the reason that they're underwhelming is because a lot of their key players have not been able to play for a good amount of the first half of the year.
I just think it's a bad look from the timing standpoint of things when that story dropped. Like you're in third place in the American League Central. I understand that you don't want guys being hurt, but you kind of can't manage conservatively this time of year, especially when the summer's heating up and you're 6 games behind in the division. I understand trying to preserve your guys and not playing guys sometime throughout pieces and stretches. But if Tim Anderson's out there and he hits one, into the infield like a short and he knows he can beat it out, fans want to see him beat it out. I'm sure his teammates want to see him beat it out too. Same applies to Luis Robert and all those other guys. When those guys are playing full speed, to me, that's when they're at their best. And to me, what that report showed is, it made me ask, is this a team that's just going through the motions of wanting to look like a winner, or do they want to be a winner? And for Tony La Russa, an old school type of manager, to be on the report saying that he's telling guys that kind of shocked me too. Because especially when you consider the type of teams that he's managed over the course of his career. His teams were always hard-nosed and tough teams, veteran-led teams, even though this team is much younger, but they play hard. They got to keep playing hard in order to gain fan support and morale on 35th and Shields. That's why you see so many boo birds. Granted, the Baltimore Orioles, they do have a young competitive team. Adley Rutschman is a future all-star in this league. I really like his game a lot. He killed the White Sox in that 4-game series with his bat. And his defensive play is second to none as well. But I think that it's just bad timing. And at some point, they're gonna have to once they get hands on deck. I don't care if they're 175%. Guys are gonna have to give it their all if they want to win this division. Plain and simple.
Yeah, and it's like, not only the timing, but it's like, well, and I'm sure this happens with teams, and it's like, but the fact that it got out, like it's stuff that shouldn't necessarily get out, like and just bad timing overall, and it's just one of those things where it's like, man, you see all the dominoes falling and the booing and all that, and it's just like, have they? I'm kind of wondering from the outside looking in, is like, have they even considered letting go of Tony La Russa? I don't know. My guess is no, probably not. Um, and I think I've told Crystal, I think the last time he was on, or I've mentioned it before in general, but I'm like, as much as I think the White Sox will get their World Series this decade, like with this team, is like I don't think I don't think it would be with Tony La Russa at the helm. So I think as much as it's like a tough pill to swallow for some fans, like this year might, even if you make it to the playoffs, even just like a wild card series, yeah, even as as Chris said, kind of a little alluded to it before, how they can't really make a run right now. It's still, I think, a positive in the end if you guys can get rid of Tony and then come back next year with a new regime and just kind of see where things go, just because I think that's what the team needs. But who knows? I think that's a long shot with this organization in general with what's going on with that and Tony. But kind of looking ahead now to this week, or a little bit about what happened on Monday and Tuesday against the Angels. And that series against the Giants coming up, but the series against the Angels, I feel like is kind of been what the White Sox season, has been, kind of summed up the White Sox season, right? It's like the first game, just lost 4-3. Syndergaard outdueled Giolito, and then in game two, the bats came out swinging, and Johnny Cueto was, Johnny Cueto. So, what have you guys seen in this Angels series, and what do you guys hope to see for the rest of this West Coast series?
Game two was good because they went down early, 3 home runs in the same inning. And my thought, I haven't been watching a lot of Sox games over the last 2 weeks just because that shit's painful. I'll be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
It's like watching there's a TV host or a radio host in DC who a long time ago was talking about that Monday Night Football game where Michael Vick and the Eagles went into DC and just destroyed Washington. And he said it was like watching Joe Pesci watching his brother get beat to death in Casino, and he couldn't do anything. That's pretty visceral, but just watching the White Sox get leads and then give them up has been what it's like. Like that Sunday game against the Orioles, I thought they were going to lose because they were at a 4-1 lead and then the bases were loaded with nobody out. That Monday game, they took the lead. They took the lead on some good quality hitting and then gave it right back up because who knows why Reynaldo Lopez is playing setup in the 7th inning. It can't be that. But yesterday's game was at least good because they didn't just knuckle under after going down 3-0. They came back. They hit the ball out of the ballpark for the first time in 10 games. And they had Josh Harrison is finally starting to hit consistently. And Luis Robert, that was probably the best shining moment yesterday for me. That gave me some hope. Luis Robert hitting a ball that made a pitcher just collapse on the mound. Because when he's right, he's hitting that thing 5 miles. And that makes the lineup so much more dangerous. So at least there was that. They need to win these series. It can't be about bright moments. They got to win series point blank period. But yesterday looked good. At least yesterday looked good.
One thing that stood out to me is the resiliency the team has shown thus far on the West Coast road trip. They got down 2 runs, but on Monday night, but Giolito found a way to play through it. And pitched well. Had his 4-seam working, had his slider working, and was mixing speeds. And I think as the game got along, he got better, which is a far cry from what Sox fans have seen from his previous 5 starts. I think the offense has come around, had some timely hitting. I think Monday night was a game that they should have won had it not been for some poor, base running on Sebi Savala's part after, Josh Harrison hit one up the middle to give him a 1-run lead. That could have been a rally momentum booster, and I think that's a game that they could have had. But last night was a great response from the team, to give up 3 homers in the same minute, as Chris alluded to. I thought Johnny Cueto bounced back from that. And he said he was tired and didn't really feel at his best, but he didn't look that way as the game went on. He got better and better. I think Josh Harrison coming through with some timely hits, he's really saved them big time. I don't think they win 2 out of 3 against the Blue Jays at home without Josh Harrison's play at the plate as well as with his glove. Moncada hit some had some big shots as well in his first game back. I like what they're doing, but tonight with the rubber match and Kopech on the bump against Shohei Ohtani, that's a game you want to win, especially going into San Francisco with some momentum on Friday night. I think the White Sox play well on the road, and they fare better on the road. It gives them a chance to really bond together as a unit and a group better. But I've been impressed with what I've seen through the first two games. You just got to finish the job.
Yeah, and you know, you said this before. I think Gavriel too. Like the fact that before this West Coast series, or sorry, after this West Coast series, you know, they're really going to go through the gauntlet, the AL Central gauntlet. You know, they got the Twins for 3, the Tigers for 4, the Guardians for 4, so and the Twins for 4 to end the half. So these are important games, not only for the season in general, but just for the confidence and you know, for momentum. But yeah, for this upcoming Giants series, I think it'll be another good test for the Sox. I think the Giants are a team that, you know, they still surprised a lot of people this year with how they're playing. They got solid pitching. Obviously, they got Carlos, you know, former White Sox Carlos Rodon. So it'd be cool to see if you guys face off with him. Yeah, it's just another test for the White Sox, a team that, you know, they haven't seen much of. So that'll be good to see. So like we said, the White Sox are in third place as of right now. They got 1 more against the Angels and 3 against the Giants over the weekend. Before we close things out, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a few things around the league. One of the big stories over the past week or so has been the Mariners Angels brawl. So I don't know how much you guys saw of it, but I've seen I think I watched like both the broadcasts, and then I watched like you know, they have that John Boy breakdown. Just kind of seeing what happened in general. But I thought it was one of the like funnier, more wild brawls. What did you guys think?
It was good. I'll let you take it, Gabe, but it was good to see.
I hadn't seen one like that in a while. And when I saw the suspensions come down, like that was crazy. That was real crazy. Like you got Rendon in there trying to punch guys and with a broken a wrist or whatever. Like that was with a club on it. Just like that was crazy.
Yeah, no, I thought what was the funniest part too is like the fact that I feel like Archie Bradley didn't do that much in the sense of like actually fighting people, but he fell over the railing and I forgot he got injured. He's out for a little bit now, but I'm like, man. And then also Ohtani just like trying to play peacemaker. Seeing him in the brawl is kind of funny. And just seeing how much former White Sox and former Cub Ryan Tepera was involved in that. Like he was in the thick of every single like punch that was being thrown, and yeah, it was pretty intense. I just like how Mike Trout, he also wasn't really involved that much. He was really just trying to help out his friend Upton because Justin Upton was on the ground for a little bit. So that was, yeah, it is definitely not necessarily like you want to see dudes get hurt, but it is one of the better brawls that I've seen in a while. Just because I feel like most baseball brawls in the past, like I don't know, I mean, as far as I've seen baseball, like I personally started watching baseball like every day, like since like '06. It's not so like I feel like I haven't seen that much like actual brawling. Like I guess like the Jose Bautista one was good. You know, you saw a punch actually make contact, but I think the type of brawls that we see nowadays is just guys talking, guys getting split up, and not really doing it. I think one of the ones, if you guys remember this one, the Chris Young and Derek Lee one, and like where like I think Chris Young,
Yeah.
yeah, Chris Young I think hit Derek Lee in the helmet if I remember correctly. Either way, he hit him, and then Derek Lee's going
Oh,
down for his
yeah, I
face.
remember that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that.
And they're arguing, and it was like it was just some of the weakest swings I've ever seen in my life. Like I was like, this is baseball brawls right here. Like guys like going like backing out and then swinging. It was like it looked like they didn't want to hit each other. Is what I'm getting to. But yeah, no, it was still you know, funny and just interesting to see. But shifting over to something more intense, or maybe more intense, especially leading up to October, was the Yankees Astros series. Now they played 4 games and split 2-2, and it was seesaw games. They had a combined no hitter. Like that series had everything, and Aaron Judge walk off. In your guys' eyes, who is the team to beat in the AL?
I think it's still the Astros until the Yankees prove otherwise, because the Astros haven't really been able to get past, the Yankees haven't been able to get past Houston when they've met in the playoffs. This is a really, 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 really good Yankees team, no doubt about it. I want to see how Nestor Cortez lasts through the season, but they're hitting the way that everybody expects them to hit, way they should be hitting, and they're playing just as well on the road. So it's still hard to say that they're not the best team, but Houston has stayed afloat, even though Alex Bregman has been subpar for his standards, and they lost Carlos Correa. Jeremy Pena's fit right in that spot, and Yordan Alvarez has proven that he was never a one-time ESPN first take wonder. So I think that's why Houston is still like the team to me. They're just so difficult, and I don't know how much people talk about it, but I remember when Kyle Tucker came in those first, I want to say it was 2 years, he really couldn't hit. He was a good right fielder, but he really could not hit. But last year he turned it up after being kind of really quiet the first month, killed the Sox in the postseason, and he's stayed consistent this year. They moved Miles Straw to make room for Chas McCormick, and again, didn't miss a beat. Houston is a quality team top to bottom. I think they might have one spot in the lineup where they could get somebody who is just a good hitter all the way through. And the Yankees don't have as many holes in their lineup, but I still would take Houston in a 7-game series over New York.
Yeah, same. I think, it's hard to go against the defending American League champions. And they've been here and they've done that for a reason. And as Chris alluded to, Yordan Alvarez has been stellar this season, to say the least. And Bregman, in spite of, getting off to a slow start, you got to believe that as the season goes along, he'll continue to pick it up. The thing that's been the most impressive to me with the Astros is not only losing Correa, but then you lose Springer as well, the previous offseason, and to still be able to keep everything afloat in spite of other losses, previous years. Like, most of that core is not the same as it once was. We still have that talent, remain and keep the ship going. And what Dusty Baker's been able to do in the wake of everything that transpired, yeah, I think that they're the team to beat. Christian Javier was amazing on Saturday. He had it all working. 7 innings strong, 13 strikeouts. With that combined no-hitter, I think they had no-hit the Yankees offense for 16 consecutive innings.
16 innings.
You think about it, and you think about that lineup, man, from top to bottom with Mayhew, Judge, Hicks, and Rizzo, and all of those guys, man. That's great work from their rotation, and they're doing a great job.
Yeah, and it's like, as you said, like, if Chris said taking the Astros in a 7-game series. I agree with that. I mean, they're destined. I think they're destined to play in the ALCS this year, or in the ALDS, wherever they do. But I think the way things are setting up is probably going to be the LCS. But yeah, and also, as Gavriel, you brought up the pitching a little bit. I feel like a lot of their pitching is underrated. Like, people don't talk about their pitching as much as their hitting. And yeah, they did replace Correa with Pena, and they've been able to live without Springer and stuff like that. But the way they've been able to put that rotation together with Javier, Valdez, Urquidy, they got guys that can throw in there, and I mean, and we're not even talking about Verlander, so it's like,
right.
So for example, like, I had on the game with they're taking on the Mets right now. It's Verlander's dealing. They had so. And the Mets are, one of the best teams in baseball. So, it's one of the things that
say that out loud to yourself again.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So, and the thing is too, with talking a little bit about the Mets, is like the fact that they're doing that stuff still without like Scherzer and DeGrom for that most of the season. So, yeah, well, it's gonna be the getting closer to October, kind of getting a little more of like a feeling of who's for real, who's like a real contender, and who's a pretender. It's gonna get really fascinating to look into those teams as a whole. But when we're talking about a team that's kind of on the bubble, kind of really or if we're talking about a team that's on the bubble, kind of like they don't know what's going to happen to them next, is probably the Phillies. So like, and Chris mentioned it earlier, the fact that Bryce Harper got injured. A lot of people are, he's only out for 6 weeks now, compared to like not only, but he's out for 6 weeks, but compared to being out for the rest of the season. The rumors are that he'll be able to come back, but some people are still sticking the fork into the Phillies. What do you guys think? You think they're done without Harper, or do you think there's still a chance?
In that NL East, with New York playing the way that they playing, Atlanta, they're not going down without a fight, as we know. I think it's gonna be tough for those guys. Losing Bryce Harper, the reigning National League MVP, that's a big deal, especially when he was gutting it out enough as it is, just trying to make sure that he was keeping his bat in the lineup, because with UCL issues in his arm, he's not able to throw. And then, this happens. Granted, you could say that he needed the rest, but to have this on top of the issues with his arm, that's tough. Kyle Schwarber is gonna have to really step up big for them. And granted, they played some great baseball thus far through the first 23 games under Rob Thompson, the interim manager there in the city of Brotherly Love. But that's gonna be a big time injury, man. It's gonna be some guys over there that's gonna have to really step it up. Real Muto as well, with his bat. And that's a tough division. So when you got New York and Atlanta in the mix, they're gonna have to play some great baseball going into July and on.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it for them. They've been able to put together a quality lineup. People don't like Alec Bohm on defense, and he's not there on defense for sure. But Didi Gregorius, Reese Hoskins, if he comes back to form, he's got 13 home runs. Kyle Schwarber. Oh, I can't stand Kyle Schwarber, but damn, that boy can hit it out the ballpark. Nick Castellanos was a fantastic get for them, even though he's having a subpar season for him. And like you mentioned, gave JT Realmuto, who I love, absolutely love, but they're not hitting like gangbusters, which they really need to be to keep up with that division. And if you look in their bullpen, which has been the Phillies' Achilles heel for so many years, they got Corey Knebel, fantastic. They got a good closer. Sir Anthony Dominguez is pitching really well, but Juris Familia, I think he's been cooked. Brad Hand, he's definitely been cooked, even though he's having a pretty good year. I don't think it's sustainable for him. You look at the whip throughout the bullpen, it's not great, and they have a lot of guys on the injured list right now. Didi Gregorius Gene Segura is on the 60-day IL, and that's a big loss for them. So yeah, it's really hard to see them coming back, which if Dave Dombrowski's job was not safe last year, it definitely can't be safe now if they fire Joe Girardi, because he's the guy who comes in, spends money to get winners. He did that with Detroit. He did that in Florida, Miami, and he was supposed to do that with Philadelphia. But, the 17-7, I think, win-loss record under the interim manager, Rob Thompson, isn't sustainable. And they got too many guys to go through with New York and Atlanta. So I want the Phillies to do good. For some reason, I like the Phillies, but I don't think it's their year. It won't be their year until they change something up.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, and we've talked about it on here with me and Miles, is just the fact that their defense is just – I mean, it is a joke. like it really is. Like, yeah. I feel like, and it's funny because I have a buddy who's also a big baseball fan. He's been watching all these games, and he'll always, if it's a close game late with the Phillies, he's always tuning in, and he's letting me know. He's like, "Yo, it's a close game in Philly." I gotta, because you never know what's gonna happen. They're gonna take the lead in the 8th or 9th inning, and then in the bottom of the 9th, they're gonna cough it up. They're gonna give a walk off. They're gonna get walked off. So it's entertaining from a neutral perspective, but it is sad to watch, just because it's they really bet on the whole offense first type thing, and it hasn't necessarily. It's worked at times because they've been able to out hit certain teams. They've been able to compete with the Mets offensively at times. But yeah, in 162 games, I just don't think it's going to work out, especially from the pitching side. They just don't have, I don't know. It's just not. It hasn't been there. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough road regardless. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to compete with the Mets and even the Braves that are on the rise. So we'll see in that end. But yeah, we'll wrap things up there, man. Hey, I really appreciate you, Gavriel, coming on for the first time, and Chris. We'll have you guys on again some other time because this was really fun. talk more White Sox for sure. Maybe even a little bit of a postseason preview for sure. So thanks guys for coming on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
course,
Thanks for
man.
having me, Saul.
Yep. All right,
Definitely appreciate you coming back on, Saul.
All right, for the At Bat Baseball podcast presented by WARR Media, we hope everyone has a great week. I am Saul Rodriguez. Have a good one.